My name is Joanne. I had always been drawn to the whispers of the past, those murmurs in time that beckon the curious and the brave. When I first saw the listing for the old apartment, nestled in a forgotten corner of the city, it felt like fate was calling my name, urging me to unlock its secrets. Little did I know, nestled within those time-worn walls, a chilling narrative awaited me, one that would begin each night, unfailingly, at 3 a.m. The apartment was an antique, a relic from another era with high ceilings adorned by intricate moldings and floors that creaked their age. Large, dusty windows filtered the light, casting long shadows that clung to the edges of every room. It was here, in this very place, where my life became an inexorable tangle with the supernatural, a gripping dance with the unseen. My nights were restless. A bone-chilling draft seemed to thread through the apartment, whispering ancient melodies. I should have recognized it as a prelude to the nightly horrors that would soon unfold. It began subtly, on my third night, under the shroud of darkness, when sleep is at its most delectable depth. The first knock came, sharp, precise, penetrating. My eyes shot open, my heart rattling against my ribs. I sat up, listening intently. I counted the seconds, but barely reached 10 before the second bout of knocks hammered against the stillness of the night. This time it was followed by the unbearable sound of screams that twisted my gut, a symphonic crescendo worthy of any horror maestro. Then, the agonizing groan of something, someone, being dragged across the living room floor. The cacophony was punctuated by a final slam, as if a weighty door had been resolutely shut. In paralyzing fear, I called the police the first few times it happened, 911 at the ready. Yet, with each visit, the officers left with skeptical looks etched into their faces, with no tangible evidence, no sign of an intruder. Their once concerned gazes turned dubious. "It's an old building. These things make noises," they rationalized as they retreated down the hallway stoically, leaving me alone with the echoes of the night. Driven by desperation, I began to scour the local archives, poring over yellowed newspapers and fading photographs, searching for a shadow of explanation that would link my terrible nocturnal experiences to the history of my abode. That's when I came across the archived article from decades ago, "Tragic Event at Local Apartment." It was headlined. Deep breaths failed to steady my trembling hands as I read about the chilling events that transpired in this very building. A young woman, much like myself, had met a grim and violent end here. Her life ripped cruelly away at the merciless hands of a lover-turned-aggressor. They told of her screams filling the night, her body dragged and then discarded, a secret encapsulated in the darkness. The realization dawned upon me like a pall, rendering me speechless, my body slack with the weight of invisible chains. I was not just hearing these sounds. I was a witness to a spectral reenactment, a timeline trapped in its final horrific moment, and replayed each night at 3 a.m. Utter dread seized me as twilight blended into the dark shades of night. An overwhelming urge to flee gnawed at my resolve, yet an inexplicable fascination cemented my feet firmly to those haunted floors. I resolved to stay the course, to document what occurred, if only to prove my own sanity. The first night armed with this new morbid knowledge, I waited. Darkness pooled into every corner. The clock's minute hand ticked with a torturous slowness. When the inevitable hour struck, I hit record on my phone, a feeble attempt to capture the unresolved anguish that dwelled in these walls. Like clockwork, it started, bang, bang, bang. The familiar, dreadful knocking as if someone or something demanded entry into our plane of existence. Then the screams bloomed anew, a garden of despair burgeoning in the thick silence of the night. The dragging followed next, a pathetic echo of struggle and hopelessness. I curled tightly around myself, whispering litanies for courage, mouthing prayers I no longer remembered. When the crescendo waned to a whisper, I dared to breathe. I played back the recording, heart marching a furious tempo in my chest. The digital playback was true. Every harrowing sound had been captured faithfully. It was vindication. It was horror. The days were no comfort, filled with research on how to end a haunting. Solutions were as varied as they were dubious, from salt circles and sage cleansing to rituals and mediums. Yet, with the steel of necessity hardening my resolve, I arranged for a medium to visit, someone with credentials that seemed as legitimate as they could in the spectral consultation business. Her name was Mrs. Havermill, a woman whose eyes told stories of decades spent traversing the veil between worlds. She listened, nodding as I recounted the terrors night after night. We waited for 3 a.m., this time together, a shared vigil against the unseen. When it began, Mrs. Havermill's presence was a balm to my terror-stricken sensibilities. Her voice was soft but authoritative, commanding the attention of whatever spirits lingered. She spoke of crossings and peace, of letting go and moving on. Her words wove through the cold night air, an incantation of release. The ritual seeped into every crevice, and as it reached its peak, the screams reached a feverish pitch before culminating in a sound unlike any night before, a final, resounding silence. The heaviness lifted like fog at sunrise, replaced with a sensation of clarity and lightness that whispered of freedom. The next night, 3 a.m. passed with no fanfare, only the gentle hum of a world at rest. The nights that followed were quiet, a reflection of the stillness within my soul that replaced the relentless terror. I often reflect on the resonance of that apartment, a portal to a past steeped in tragedy, and my role as its last spectator. The echoes of that woman's pain had reverberated through time, seeking an end to their torment. I do not know if it was fate or coincidence that drew me to that apartment, or why her spirit connected to mine. What I do know is I was part of her story, a final chapter that brought, at long last, peace. My life continues, often shadowed by the memories of my time within those walls, but no longer shackled by fear. In the grand theater of existence, I have learned that sometimes we are but players in acts written long before our arrival, echoes of the past, whispering through the fabric of time, seeking solace in the compassion of the present. The apartment now stands empty, a silenced dwelling where once there was uncanny unrest. A chapter closed, history acknowledged and laid to rest. As I write this tale, I understand the power of bearing witness, how sometimes all that a lost soul truly needs is to be heard. And so, I shared our story. A phantasmal requiem, a solemn melody played out in the choir of the night, now silenced, an echo fading into the hush of the world.